Hello everybody, this is Fernando for the latest Cryptids and Monsters of the Week video. Well, for this random page entry there on the cryptids.wikia.com website, this was an awesome entry in the fact that it's heavily linked to a video that I was just talking about a couple of videos back. This was the infamous location there in Queensland, Australia that was known as the Black Mountain. And at this mysterious location, there was a lot of disappearances that are tied to it, and there was a brief blur, but I mentioned it in the video. I said that there may be a cryptid that could be causing a lot of these disappearances, but I just pretty much left it as that. And with regards to this entry, how wonderful it was to land on what could be the actual creature itself. So how about that when it comes to these two things being very similar to each other? In fact, you're looking at a picture of this mysterious creature now, and it has to do with this. It's known as several names, but it's known primarily as the Queensland Tiger. So let's go ahead and let's talk about all the fascinating info associated with this mysterious creature, and again how it could be linked to that Black Mountain location. So what is this Queensland Tiger? Well, again, it goes by several names. It's also been known as the yarri. But this is, for all intents and purposes, a tiger that's found there in the Queensland area, specifically towards eastern Australia. So this is, again, a creature, if you were to take just maybe your average sized tiger, but just shrink it down a little bit, that's what you would get when it comes to this creature. So I mentioned again because so many of my other cryptids almost seem to be related to other more well-known creatures. This is just like a variation of it. So as far as it having other attributes very similar to a tiger, there's this. It has obviously like very, very large prominent front teeth. It also has very large claws on its legs and on its feet as well. And then it has distinctive, beautiful looking stripes. In fact, apparently they come in two hues altogether. One is either a brownish hue, more auburn in other words, with like brownish colors, or it could actually come with darker colors, like more on the line side of blackish colors, with other type of colors for its stripes. So imagine seeing something like this, at least hopefully from afar, from a safer distance. It will definitely be beautiful to look at, especially the darker colored one. And then it also has a very prominent long tail, just like a tiger would as well. But the big difference between the two is this. It definitely has what's called a savage temperament. It's a ferocious creature, a savage creature as well. It wouldn't be too hard to think of it as such because of the fact that it has such apex-like attributes to it. I mean, the claws, the big teeth, the perfect camouflage associated with it. Imagine something like this, apex-like predator. Again, on the hunt, you essentially wouldn't have much of a chance, especially considering how what kind of temperament it has and how territorial it is. Then this is a creature to stay away from. And then as far as again its sightings and where it's encountered, some of the earliest known sightings, you would have to go, at least on the witness side, you'd have to go to about 1871. Those are the earliest documented witness reports, and they actually came from some of the indigenous people that have lived there, some of the Aborigines that roamed around that location. They were stating it, in fact, as being quote unquote fast and agile, which again wouldn't be too much of a stretch considering how closely related it is to a tiger. Other reports also include this. Apparently in 1926, there was a gentleman by the name of A.S. Lassouf who described in, I guess it was a periodical or journal called The Wild Animals of Australia, he described seeing something that he called a striped marsupial cat. And then there was another entry by a gentleman by the name of Ellis Troughton, who was a curator of animals or mammals there in the Australian Museum. He stated something along the lines of it also looking like coming across a creature that also looked like the Queensland tiger. And this was something, again, that was coming from his own description. But there's still even more sightings all the way up to the 1950s, but that's apparently where things started to die off. Like People started to see this creature up to that point, but then they really stopped altogether, and there really hasn't been too many afterward. But who knows, as far as this creature, maybe the people are still seeing it from afar, or they're mischaracterizing for something else altogether, but who knows where the whereabouts of this creature are to this day. Now, as far as, again, how I was linking it to the Black Mountain is this. Remember, I was mentioning in that video, which if you haven't had a chance to check it out, I do recommend doing so. It's a really good video where I went over a lot of the fascinating info associated with the disappearances tied there. Well, when I was talking about the location, I mentioned that there's so many caves, so many labyrinth of caves and areas that have just places to hide from or get lost in particular. Well, this would be a creature that would be perfectly adept to hunt in that area. So imagine you have someone there just going to try about, go into the caves thinking that they'll be able to get out, but naturally they get lost. And the further they go in, the more they get hopelessly lost, and there's no chance of going around. Well, all the while, there's this creature, this Queensland tiger, who could call that Black Mountain its own home. There it is, slowly but surely stalking you as you're making around your next infinite amount of twists and turns, trying to get out, but there's no chance whatsoever. It could easily use all those labyrinth of tunnels and of caves and entrances to be able to do that kind of hunt. And then whenever you come across that other corner thinking that you're safe, there it is just naturally waiting for you. And then it's too little, too late when it comes to its hunt. It's already there, and there's nothing pretty much you can do. I posit that fact. I state that this could be a perfect creature that could explain several of those disappearances there, and it could do so while still not being seen by so many people. This is a perfect location for it to hide at and then do its hunt, not just for animals, but obviously for anyone that gets lost in that location, and no one would know its whereabouts. So much of the Australia area, let alone this location, the Black Mountain, remains mysterious and remains uncharted. Well, not necessarily uncharted, but it remains remote, where it's not really, like, let's say, explored by people on a continuous basis. I remember, in fact, the Burunjur, one of my favorite videos, the last living T-Rex, how people still hear its roar off in the far off distance, living in some remote area. Well, that's what could happen with this creature as well. There it is, just living in those particular sections and living its life as, basically as a creature that could be two other forms of extinct creatures. In fact, I'll talk about that here now, because remember I was mentioning earlier it could be mischaracterized. Well, there's the idea that it could be identified as two extinct creatures. One is this, the Tasmanian tiger, which you're looking at a picture of now. I could totally see this happening, even though this Tasmanian tiger, the last known one, died either in 1936 or 1933, as I saw in another report. This Tasmanian tiger could be identified as the Queensland tiger. It may be a little bit skinnier, but still, seeing something from afar or seeing something move agile, as others have described it, fast and agile, then it could be misidentified as this. And again, with so many remote areas, having something like this just survive, people thinking that it died, in other words, in captivity in 1936, well, no, there could actually be several more of them surviving out there in those remote areas, and people would have no idea. And so I do think that that's a good theory. Another one is another creature known as the Thylacinus cynocephalus. Boy, that's a long scientific name, but it's also known as the thylacinid. And this is another creature that's also extinct, but again, could be a some kind of relative, or the species itself of the Queensland tiger is just adapted to this form as well. But yes, this is one that again, people think that is completely gone, but I posit the fact that it could be something else in terms of this Queensland tiger. We just call it as such, as the Queensland tiger, when it could really be this. But as far as any more sightings, any other, let's say, encounters that people have had, there hasn't been really much, which is good, again, considering how savage this creature could be when it comes to its behavior. Not even, let's say, within other parts of the world, let alone Australia, But that's pretty much all the info I could find on there. But if anyone has any more information, anything else I might have missed, please post those comments below. Maybe somebody there from the Australian area, maybe those that know more history or the locale associated with the Black Mountain. If anyone can explain more of a direct linkage to the Queensland Tiger, then I would definitely love to see that part. And again, please check out my video on the Black Mountain itself. I also have the link on that video to that book, through a mystic glass, that goes over more information about some of the mysterious locations there in Australia. And it's free too. It's a free PDF file from Dr. David Marshall. You'll be able to see that information there too. And that's a great way to spend, let's say, on a rainy afternoon, to be able to go through all that wonderful, wonderful info. But again, if anyone has any more info on that, please post those comments below. All right, everybody. Thanks again as always. Take care.